Hello, I'm John Brummitt, President and CEO of the Board of Retirement. When we started preparing for this seminar, we didn't fully know what 2020 was going to look like, and we still don't, even now, don't know where we're going to end up with 2020. 2020 has been a lot like a marathon that we're running, but there's no mile markers or indicators to show us how far we've went or how much further we have to go. This seminar is titled "Preparing for the Next Financial Crisis." Um, we'll talk a little bit about the different types of financial crises. We'll also, and what we will briefly talk about like the causes that bring them up, but that's not what we're really going to focus on in this seminar. We're really going to dig into the simple ways to get prepared for the next one that arises, and doing that through automation, conscious spending, to try to help you get on track with a savings plan that won't really affect very much of your daily routine. And then at the end of it, we'll talk a little bit about how you just maintain and grow your financial plan over the years until you need the funds and you need to draw them out. So starting out, we'll start with the types of a financial crisis that we might face. They can affect anyone, family, or person, or they can impact an entire nation or a global economy. By definition, a financial crisis is when asset prices are see a steep decline in value. Businesses and consumers are unable to pay their debts, or financial institutions experience liquidity shortages. Now, when it comes to a personal financial crisis, most all of us know what that means. That's when we've had an emergency or something has arose in our life that affects our financial outlook. So it could be we lost a job, we had storm damage to our house that we had to make repairs to, or it could be something emergency with a car or something like that. On the flip side, most of us have at least experienced one or two global crises that have arisen, whether it be in 2007 and 8 when we had the Great Recession, or even in this year with COVID-19 has pushed us into a financial crisis as well. And so both of these, while one is a global, national type situation and one is more personal, they all affect us personally. And so the good news is it's preparing for these. We're always preparing for them on a personal level. And so that's what we're going to talk through today is we're going to talk through how to get your finances in order to be able to face whether it's a personal or a national uh, type of situation. So causes and consequences. I listed them all out here. A lot can be said when you start talking about causes and consequences of how a financial crisis comes to be. It could be strategic complementaries on financial markets, leverage, asset liability mismatches, uncertainty or herd behavior, regulatory failures, contagion, recessionary effects. Like those are all the things. But luckily for you, we're not covering those in this seminar. We're going to try to stick with things that will help you identify a crisis, but be able to handle it as well. Because if you can only identify a crisis, but you're not prepared for it, it does no good for you. And so that's the main point that I want to hone in on this section right here is uh, being able to identify a crisis only helps if you're financially prepared to face it. For most families in America, they aren't able to get past this one hurdle. Um, they want to debate the minutia of whether it's better to invest in this or that, or what effects it'll have if they go through a financial crisis, and whether it's better to invest or just save. And so they get caught up in this detail of what to do and they do nothing. And so, honestly, when it comes to preparing for the next financial crisis, uh, you're going to make a mistake. You're not going to get everything right. But you are going to get everything wrong if you do nothing. And so that's what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get what's that first step to get prepared and go from there. If you take the example of a lady that sets a goal of wanting to start running 5 times a week, but then finds out that it's very hard to go out 5 times a week. And so she decides she's going to quit. And when someone suggested, well, why don't you try running just once a week? She laughs and says, what good would that do if I only ran once a week? And so oftentimes we build up in our minds that it's better to do something all the way or not do it at all. But when it comes to your physical health or financial preparedness, doing a little bit up front, even if it's not what our main goal was, gets us a lot further down the road than doing nothing at all. And so instead of doing nothing and sitting on your couch, you go out and you run 1 day a week. Well, you're in better shape that one time a week doing your exercises than not doing anything at all. And so that's kind of the approach that we want to take with this seminar is learning to start to do just a little bit and changing that mindset of I have to do it all the way or nothing at all. And just getting started is the hardest part of getting on track. So, some of the things that we'll talk about is uh, adjusting your financial goals from being something like I want to prepare for 6 months worth of emergency savings to be in the bank so that that seems overwhelming to us. But then you change that or you adjust that goal to say, I'm going to save $500 in the next 3 weeks or 3 months. And putting that goal is a little more in reach and it doesn't stress us as much and we don't have to give up and change our lifestyles completely. Um, Most people fail at dieting because they change too drastically in what they're trying to do to sustain their long-term goal. The problem is when you change everything drastically, it's very hard to stick to it. Most of us have our daily routines because they're easy or we don't have to think about them very much. And so it is important that even though budgets, even though dieting is important, budgets and diets carry the same connotation to where if we don't do something that we are planning to do, then we feel guilty about it. So if you were sticking to your diet, but then you had your cheat day, you feel guilty because you had your cheat day. And so it builds this negative connotation. Well, or budgets work very much the same way to where we say we're not going to spend, but then when we spend, we feel bad about it. And so, but then we're constantly trying to change the behavior that we've built up over several years to match what we set our goals are. By doing this and and changing the way that we think about this to making things more easy for us, this is how we make lasting changes. And so that's one of the first things that we want to talk about during this is making sure that whenever we're preparing our budgets, even our diets, that we try to make it as simple on ourselves as possible. So and that leads us to automation. And so with technology today, it's very simple for us to automate um, our our budgets, our credit cards, our banking systems, our retirements, even how we get paid and what we spend. And so automation is the first step in preparing for your next financial crisis. Automation is a wonderful thing when it comes to financial preparedness because it causes us to not have to think about what we need to pay when it comes to your credit card bills, mortgage, retirement contributions, investments, your monthly spending. All that stuff can be automated, and so thus making it easier on you so that you don't have to constantly be thinking about it. You basically have to do some work on the front end to make sure that you have everything set up, but then once it's set up, then it takes all that off of your plate. So being able to automate your stuff was more likely for you to continue in your savings plan and being able to focus on the things that really matter to you. One of the statistics that we see in especially the retirement community is workers that are auto enrolled into retirement programs have an 82% probability of staying in that retirement plan because they don't think about it. They let inertia set in and it works for them, rather than saying you need to sign up for retirement, but then you never do. And so inertia works against you because you don't ever take that first step. And so the same concept comes into play when it comes to preparing for your next financial crisis. Is you want the inertia to work for you rather than against you. And so an automation would look something like this. You'd have your employer set up to make retirement contributions into your 401k or your 403b, taking full advantage of your employer match if your employer does that for you. And then you would set up direct deposit into your checking and to your savings account. The checking account would cover your daily expenses, and then your savings accounts would cover your saving goals. Say you want to save $1,000 in the next 3 months, and so you just break that down over how much that would be a paycheck, and just have that automatically deposited into your savings account. With online banking services that are available today, it's very easy for you to be able to handle all this stuff and make it automated so that you can set up all your bill pay through your credit card or through your banking accounts, and you can also set up even your investments to be automatically drafted out of your accounts. And so you can basically say, I know that I have this much money coming in, I know that I have these bills coming in, and then what is left over is yours to spend guilt free. You don't have to worry about it. So when it comes to setting all this stuff up, it's very easy for you to uh, look at what you've been spending and then just automate everything so that you don't have late fees and you also don't have overdraft charges on your account. Now, if you have credit cards that you're paying for your daily life, a lot of people will use a credit card rather than their bank account. Is very important to make sure that you're paying that off at the end of each month so that you're not paying undue interest payments on top of that. A lot of Americans now are paying significant amounts of their hard-earned money on interest payments each month. But that's money that you could be using for something that you actually enjoy rather than interest payments. And so getting out of debt, while it may take time, it's important to put that on your priority list. And so you could automate that as well to figure out, if I paid this much extra per month on my loans or on my debt, how long will it take me to get out of debt? And so you can do that. Now, the key is not making it so drastic that it cuts all the fun out of your life, because as we all know with dieting and everything else, if it's not fun for us to do, or if it's unbearable for us to do, then we're less likely to do it. Another thing with automation is, let's say for example, you're spending 100% of your take-home pay. A lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and so they're spending 100% of their take-home pay. So when you're trying to automate things, then you're looking for those areas of your outflow that you could cut in order to do your savings. So the first place that I would recommend people to look is removing the expenses that you pay for, but you don't really enjoy or use. So think things like Netflix, gym memberships, magazine subscriptions, etc. Those things are things that you might use once in a while, but you're not using them to the full advantage of what it's costing you. And so if you use Hulu but you don't use your Netflix account that much, then drop Netflix. If you have your gym membership but you only go 2 or 3 times a month, then look at switching to a pay as you go or pay when you show up type thing, rather than having a subscription. And that oftentimes can be enough to make significant changes in how much you're able to save, and also free up some of the funds that you have currently in your budget. And I'll throw this in as a side note here. Uh, do set up a savings account that pays some type of interest. Banks like Ally and Marcus, they have online savings accounts that usually pay at least 1% or better. Your money that sits in savings is going to sit there for a while, And so being able to earn something on that it will be to your advantage. And at the same time, don't just chase earnings rates. So if one bank has 1.2 and one bank has 1.3, don't switch banks all the time to chase, a small change like that. But you do want something that's going to pay you some interest. And so I'll just throw that in there. When you automate your checking account and you set up your bills to be paid, uh, do your monthly transfers to your savings. Do monthly transfers for savings out of your savings account. Rather than having that in your checking account, move it into the savings direct deposit from your employer. That way, whenever you have a large amount in your savings account that's built up over time, then you can start transferring that stuff from a savings vehicle to, say, a Roth IRA or an investment account or some type of things like that that's going to build up for future use, long term type things. Now, when we get everything set up uh, to be paid and transferred out of your checking account, all the money that's left over is what you use to do all the things that you enjoy doing. And if that is not enough, like if you come down to that and you're at zero or negative, then you have one of two options. You either have to decrease something that you're spending, or you have to pick up extra work. You can do this by getting a side gig, getting a part-time job, renegotiating your salary at work, switching jobs. There's a lot of things that you can do. But cutting expenses is usually harder because you've grown accustomed to your lifestyle. And so being able to focus on things that you don't really enjoy or you don't really like to do or don't get a lot of enjoyment out of, cutting those things out first usually helps you save up to 50, $60 a month, and that being put away into your savings each month can make a big difference. Um, when we get to the part of your automation where you're pulling savings out and you're moving it into your investment accounts. Now, this can be retirement. This can be a brokerage account. This could be Roth IRAs. It could be just mutual funds that you carry in your savings. When you get to those, it's important to remember two things. Popular myths say that the only people that have investments are people who are rich or people who understand and pick stocks. When it comes to investments, everybody that has a retirement account has investments. Your retirement account is invested in the market. It provides a higher rate of return than what a savings account or even a CD is going to. And the equity market is something that's going to keep up with inflation and outperform inflation, so that your money has a better chance of keeping its value over the long time. When it comes to setting up your retirement account, find out what your options are. If you have an employer that has an employer sponsored plan, like Free Will Baptist ministers have the Board of Retirement, and we are an employer plan. Employer plans are going to give you better options when it comes to how they're set up, how they're structured. You also get tax advantages with those. And so having checked with your employer first to see what your options are there, that would be the first place to start. Now, if you work for an employer that doesn't have an employer plan, say you work part-time at a place and they don't allow employer benefits for that, then as long as you have employment, then you're allowed to set up an IRA or a Roth IRA. Setting up some type of retirement savings is very important for the long term. And so that would be the first place. If you have no savings, you set up your emergency fund, and then the second thing you set up would be your retirement savings. Once you have those fully funded, then you can look into the other areas of investments and brokerage accounts. But I wouldn't start there. I would start with the emergency fund and then retirement. Once you have those set up and you're contributing, then you can move on and look at starting to pay down debt if you have debt before you move into other areas. But getting those basic building blocks on track is what helps you prepare for the next financial crisis. Having your emergency fund, if you have an issue, then you can draw out of your emergency fund to pay for it. If you lost a job, like many did during this financial crisis, that you have something that you're not desperate or destitute that you can draw from, and that helps ease a lot of stress. And it also helps keep you on track with other things in your life. Now, when it comes to once you have all those building blocks in place, now it's time to get into what you look at whenever you're looking at your daily spending. Now, this is the money that you spend going out to eat every day or a couple times a week. If you're buying clothes, buying things like that, just your enjoyment of the spending cash that you have. And so we've come up with this concept of conscious spending rather than having all these things that you just have automated that are coming out automatically. This is your conscious spending. This is the one that you're actually thinking about, making decisions about, this is what you want to spend your money on. And so the concept that we're pushing with this is maximizing the enjoyment that you get with the funds that you have available. Um, Once you're able to spend the money on the things that you want to spend money on, then spend it on the things that really give you pleasure rather than things that you kind of like, but you're not really that interested in. So, as an example, let's say that you really enjoy eating at high-end steakhouses, um, and that's like your big thing that you really enjoy to do. Well, is it worth giving up eating at fast food restaurants 4 days a week or 5 days a week so that you can go to a really nice steakhouse once a week? And so those are the type of things where we say conscious spending. It's you sacrifice some of the things that you're doing to be able to do the things that you really enjoy. And so, but you're really focusing on just one or two items. Don't We're not trying to change every spending habit that you have. We're just trying to focus on one or two of them, because if we focus on more than one or two, then it becomes very hard for us to um, concentrate or maintain that drive that we had when we first set it up. And so we're just going to focus on a couple of these and try to make a difference with those. And so if it's eating at nice restaurants, then we'll give up fast food. If it's you enjoy taking vacations with your family, then you give up doing movies on the weekends or something like that. And so you're sacrificing one thing that you kind of enjoy to do something that you really enjoy. And so those little victories over time will add up to make big changes in your financial outlook. Now, once all this is set up, you've got your finances automated, and you've changed your conscious spending. Then it really becomes simple to just kind of maintain and grow your financial plan from then on out. And so you'll spend a lot of time setting things up at the first, but then once it's set up, then it's little tweaks and changes as you get raises, as you check on your bills. You find things that, oh well, we're paying for this now, but we don't really enjoy that as much. And so it'd be okay if we gave that up and move on to something else. And so by doing this and kind of setting a reminder on your calendar to spend, 5-10 minutes a week, checking in on your accounts, making sure that you have got your bills set up the way that they need to be, then it becomes more automatic and you don't really have to think about it as much. And so that way you're more likely to stay on that track so that you're performing the savings goals that you're wanting to hit. And so being able to do this will put you in a much better position, not only currently but in the future as well. And so being able to maintain and grow your system helps you cover all your bills. It also helps you to um, maintain uh, your savings goals, and then helps as it builds up over time, helps you to reach your long-term goals. And so, you can save for everything for emergency funds to retirement savings, but you can also save for things like Christmas gifts, vacations, a new appliance, things like that. You can set short-term goals and long-term goals in this system and help you to reach those goals without overstretching yourself in the short term, so that you're still able to enjoy those little things along the way. When we um, started doing the research for this seminar, the thing that we really wanted to do was make something that was very simple for people to be able to realize that all budgeting and all saving isn't a very hard thing to do. And so, if you have questions or you have things that you wanted to dive deeper into with this seminar, then please feel free to contact me. My contact information is on the screen. We're happy to talk through any of the stuff that you have if we can help in any way. Um, we we really enjoy getting to spend this time sharing with you, and look forward to being in person with you again sometime in the future.